Healing begins with the mind. 3. Shows Egyptian art. Quite lovely. Number 7. Healthy psychological inventories. An example using test results from the MMPI of yours truly. These are indices of psychology. The number of scales with T-score over 70, none. Number of scales between T-score of 40 and 60, 8 of 13. Disturbance index, DSI, equals 461.78, where 550 and above is used to determine significant degrees of disturbance are present. 549 and below are called normal adjustment. The validity scales first. L is 0, and this is part of the disturbance index. The F scale is minus 25.2. This is the calculations that are used just for the disturbance index now. This K scale is 178. Hypochondriasis is 0. Depression, D, is 43. Hysteria is 17.8. Psychopathic deviant is 69.6. Masculinity, femininity is 42.4. Paranoia is 35.6. Paranoia. Cytosthenia is 2.7. Schizophrenia is 3.6. Hypomania is 49.8. Social introversion is 4.7. Anxiety is 2.38. Repression is 0. Ego strength, P, is 37.4. And those were all values that are used to determine the disturbance index, and it comes out to be the total is 461.78, which is a good score, of course. Number 4, MT, maladjustment, raw score is 2. T-score is 34.12. Number 5, social adjustment, raw score is 2. T-score is 36. Index of psychopathology, called the IP, on a scale of 1 to 10, it is 3.5. And the calculation is, I won't even get into that, but it's listed here. You do the paranoia, schizophrenia, and you subtract a certain number and you get 3.5. Number 7, indices in Leary's interpersonal diagnostic system. A, dominance. Dominance is 2, that is dominance versus submissiveness. B, love, or LOV, that's a category, is 39, that is love versus hate. Number 8, other indices. AI, anxiety index is 42.66. A, anxiety, first factor is 35. AT, or Iowa manifest anxiety, is 34.72. R, repression second factor is 53. Repression factor 2 is 43. Scale 2, that is 43. IR, internalization ratio, is .863. G, hostility, HOS, hostility, manifest hostility, is 37. H, hostility, Finney is, that is from Finney, is 35.43. Hostility from McDougall is 33.81. REL, religious fundamentalism, is 49. Psychoticism is 45. Phobias is 35. Autocratic power is 21. That is leader versus follower. Depression is 38. This K scale is 68. The ego strength is 67. Number 9, the validity scales. L is 56, which is moderate elevation. Elevated scale values are likely in test subjects who are ministers, reformers, social activists, or evangelical missionaries. The F scale is 50, the middle range. This indicates conformity and would indicate few deviant beliefs, attitudes, or unusual experiences, and shows a tendency to avoid endorsement of socially unacceptable, threatening, or disturbing test items. The scale K is 68, which is moderately elevated. A low K is associated with the psychotic tetrad, scales 2, 4, 6, and 8. A high K is associated with the neurotic triad, scales 2, 3, and 4. Score in high average 57 through 64 is well-adjusted, self-reliant, and easily capable of dealing with everyday problems. There seems to be few emotional disturbances or threats to self-esteem or self-control, and little interpersonal wrangling. These persons show restraint, prudence, and circumspection in their everyday conduct and behavior. Also, reasonable, clear thinking, showing initiative, readily ego-involved, enterprising, resourceful, versatile, having high intellectual ability, ingenious, enthusiastic, verbal, sociable, being a good mixer, taking an ascendant role, having wide interests, and fluent. These are the characteristics that come under that category. These men were competent, effective, and well balanced. There's no implication that they were not concerned about their own personal or social status. Rather, they are quite content with the way they find themselves. Moderately elevated scores, 65 through 74, indicated efforts to maintain an appearance of adequacy, control, and effectiveness. Number 10, the basic scales. Scale 1 is 49, that is low. The designation is hypochondrious with the HS. Friends describe men as having narrow interests and the women as being well balanced and conventional. Adjectives typifying were alert, quick to adjust, at ease in oral expression, cheerful, capable, good looking, responsible, argumentative, intelligent, outgoing, having initiative, persuasive, competitive, warm. The general picture seems to be one of freedom from hampering neurotic inhibitions, from over-evaluation of oneself and one's own problems, and from undue concern about adverse reactions of others. These persons are also characterized by an energetic and spontaneous pursuit of the goals and aims in which they have a sincere interest and investment. In the self-reports of the men, only the descriptions sensitive, emotional, and soft-hearted appeared in the analysis. These persons are also characterized by an energetic and spontaneous pursuit of the goals and aims in which they have a sincere interest and investment. In the self-reports of the men, Only the descriptions sensitive, emotional, and soft-hearted appear in the analysis. And here we have an Egyptian piece of art. The B scale is next. I'm sorry, this D scale is next, and it's item B. And it is a value of 44, which is low, and that's under depression. Lower scores reflect a naturalness, buoyancy, and freedom of thought and action that lead to easy social relations, confidence in taking on tasks, and effectiveness in a variety of activities. The lack of inhibition in low twos may, in certain contexts, lead to negative reactions from others. However, as a result of hurt feelings, slighted friendships, and threatened confidences, men are seen by their peers as balanced, self-controlled, self-confident. Also, they're seen as active, hard-headed, aggressive, informal, cheerful, outspoken, energetic, restless, generous, witty, good-natured, affected, that is, affected, affected, impulsive, autocratic, outgoing, emotional, responsible, excitable, prone to show off, talkative, adventurous, humorous, alert, intelligent, egotistical, quick, enthusiastic, self-seeking, spontaneous, having initiative. C, scale number 3, is 62, which is high, and it's hysteria. HY is the code. The adjectives describing the males were fair-minded, enthusiastic, enterprising, adventurous, mature, cooperative, kind, verbal, having wide interests, energetic, prone to worry, socially forward, generous, sentimental, talkative, grateful, mix well socially, persevering, assertive, alert, affectionate, clear-thinking, good-tempered, individualistic, courageous. Judges rated high males as clever, enthusiastic, infantile, inhibited, spunky, impatient, enterprising, imaginative, thankless, both responsible and irresponsible, independent in judgment. They have a high degree of intellective ability to think for themselves. The psychological picture is one of social participation and easy accessibility, ready involvement in activities and participation in social activities. D, scale number 4, is 58, which is high. That's psychopathic deviant. These persons are adventurous and courageous, sociable in both senses of the word, socially forward and mixing well, talkative and verbal, enthusiastic, good-tempered, frank, generous, fair-minded, and individualistic. Also said to have wide interests and like drinking. They are characterized as sensitive and prone to worry. They are described by their peers as hostile and aggressive in their interpersonal relationships, sarcastic and cynical, as well as ostentatious and exhibitionistic. IPAR assess this type as tense, moody, nervous, and resentful, aggressive, immature, irritable, leisurely, and unemotional. E, scale number 5, is 61. That's high. And it's the MF masculinity, femininity scale. These persons were characterized their peers by their peers as sensitive and prone to worry, idealistic and peaceable, sociable and curious, and having general aesthetic interests. Ipar described these as psychologically complex and inner-directed, intellectually able and interested. They were seen to value cognitive pursuits and to derive important satisfactions from such work and achievements. They showed concern with philosophical problems, but not necessarily in only an abstract, disinterested way. They frequently took stands on moral issues and at times showed a great deal of self-awareness and self-concern that was neither neurotic nor immature. They were seen as socially perceptive and responsive to interpersonal nuances. These attributes showed up as good judgment and common sense. Letter F, scale number 6, is 67 high. It's paranoia. Males with high scores were rated as sensitive, emotional, and prone to worry. They were seen as kind, affectionate, generous, and grateful, also sentimental and soft-hearted, peaceable, cooperative, and courageous, and as having wide interests. IPAR raters saw them as readily becoming ego-involved and tending to make these pursuits personally relevant and important. Also energetic and industrious, and as having high initiative, poised, rational, and clear thinking, intelligent and insightful, with wide interests and progressive approaches. Self-descriptions were trustful, amorous, and worldly. G, scale number 7, is 58 high, is psychiatric PT. Peer raters found these sentimental, peaceable, and good-tempered, also verbal, individualistic, and dissatisfied. IPAR found these to be dull, formal, and unemotional, also idealistic and insightful, appeared immature and quarrelsome. Self-descriptions were sentimental and high-strung, with general aesthetic interests and national political interests. It's true, isn't it? H, scale number 8, is 51, which is considered high. It's schizophrenia. These were rated as prone to worry, self-dissatisfied and conscientious, good-tempered, versatile, and enthusiastic with wide interests and general aesthetic interests. Also frank, fair-minded, and courageous. Appeared kind and sentimental as well as peaceable. IPAR, found them effective in communicating their ideas clearly, but showing evidence of being at odds with themselves and of having major internal conflicts. Also hostile, blustery, irritable, resentful, touchy, moody, stubborn, opinionated, autocratic, deceitful, disorderly, and impulsive. They displayed imaginative, mischievous, and sharp-witted behavior. Self-descriptions include high-strung, conscientious, worrying, individualistic, enterprising, adventurous, curious, and amorous. Also frank, talkative, kind, sentimental, and grateful. I, scale number 9, is 55, which is high. It's hypomania, MA, is the code for it. Peer ratings include adjectives sociability, energy, openness, forward, talkative and verbal, individualistic, impulsive, enthusiastic, adventurous, and curious with interest in national political matters, also liking drinking. These men were seen as generous, soft-hearted, affectionate, and sentimental. Acquaintances described them as prone to worry, self-dissatisfied, and conventional. IPAR found these as sensitive, thoughtful, and imaginative, as anxious and nervous, and as deceitful and unfriendly. Self-descriptions include impulsive, talkative, adventurous, liking to drink, frank, and reclusive. J, scale number 10, the last scale here for the basic scales is 37, is low. It's a social introversion. These subjects were seen as sociable and versatile in the sense of mixing well. Also expressive, ebullient, colorful persons. They tended to be ostentatious and exhibitionistic, active, vigorous, and competitive with their peers. They showed strong initiative and took the ascendant role in relations with others. They appeared to possess high intellectual ability and were verbally fluent and facile. They were persuasive and often won others over to their viewpoint. They also manipulated others in attempting to gain their own ends, seeing things rather opportunistically rather than sensitive to the meaning and value of these persons as individuals. These men were seen as potentially guileful and deceitful. They emphasized oral pleasure in a self-indulgent way, seeking aesthetic and sensual impressions. They appeared unable to delay gratification and often acted with insufficient thought and deliberation. This under control of their impulses combined with their tendency to get ego involved in many different things led to a characteristic aggressiveness or hostility in their personal relations. These men emphasized success and productive achievement as a means for achieving status, recognition, and power. They readily become counterproductive in the face of frustration and easily aroused hostility and resentment in those with whom they dealt. IPAR found them as active, ambitious, and blustery, also immature, hasty, quick, ingenious, witty, and having initiative. Self-descriptions include sociable, enterprising, enthusiastic, affectionate, and responsive, courageous and cheerful, hard-headed, facing life, temperate, and adaptable. Number 8, Chapter 8, basically. Myers-Briggs type indicator. The Myers-Briggs type indicator. The INTJ type. That is the introverted, intuitive, thinking type. Thinking, judging type. The introverted intuitive is the outstanding innovator in the field of ideas, principles, and systems of thought. He trusts his own intuitive insight as to the true relationships and meanings of things regardless of established authority or popularly accepted beliefs. His faith in his inner vision of the possibilities is such that he can remove mountains, and often does. In the process, he may drive others or oppose them as hard as his own inspirations drive him. Problems only stimulate him. The impossible takes a little longer, but not much. His outer personality is judging, being mainly due to his auxiliary, which is thinking. Thus he backs up his original insight with the determination, perseverance, and enduring purpose of a judging type. He wants his ideas worked out in practice, applied, and accepted, and spends any time and effort necessary to that end. The danger for this type arises from his single-minded concentration. He sees his goal so clearly that he may miss other things that he ought to see, even though they conflict with that goal. The rights, interests, feelings, and points of view of other people, facts, conditions, and counterforces that do exist and must be reckoned with. He should talk over his plans with an extroverted sensing type and really listen to them or him. He is outstandingly effective in scientific research and engineering design, where his boldly ingenious ideas have to meet and fit reality. He always needs some such reality check, but the very boldness of his ideas may be of immense value in any field and should not be smothered in a routine job full of details. If his judgment is undeveloped, he cannot criticize his own inner vision, and he tends to reject judgments from outside without really hearing them. As a result, he cannot shape his inspirations into effective action, and may appear only as a visionary or crank. He is the most individualistic and most independent of all the types. He resembles the extroverted thinker, both in his organizing ability and in the danger of ignoring other people's feelings and views. He needs to make a real effort to understand and appreciate. He's likely to be an effective, relentless organizer, can be an efficient executive, rich in ideas. The intuitive, introvert, thinking, judging type usually have original minds and great drive for their own ideas and purposes. In the fields that appeal to them, they have a fine power to organize a job and carry it through, with or without help. Skeptical, critical, independent, determined, sometimes stubborn, they must learn to yield less important points in order to win the most important. Chapter 9, basically. Do dreams reflect any reality? Some examples. The following are some dreams that the author had about his son. Number 1, had a dream about Noah on the morning of 9/21/94. He said, "They're trying to drown me, Jimmy Lee." This has something to do with a real or potential past, current, or future threat to his safety or well-being. Also, he was a baby about 3 to 6 months old in the dream. I was with Tanya, and to me, in the dream, I was simply impressed by the fact that he could speak. They're trying to drown me, Jimmy Lee. With a real or potential past, current, or future threat to his safety or well-being. Number 2, on 6/25/1993, dream that indicated that his name or role was that of a Valencia or valence, which means a bond. Number 3, on 1/31/93, that is 1993, I had a vision about Joseph Jr., Negro. That name was in a book structure. It's the Akashic Hall. While I was trying to read what was said about Jimmy Jr., there was something like the sound of thunder, a bell explosion, all at once, etc., and I awoke. It's almost like it's like they pushed me out of there. Number 4, in about February, I had a dream where he was unclad from the waist down, and he was crying loudly. I had or have never had another dream about a child of mine crying before. This was at that time. Number 5, in about April, I had a dream where it was stated that his IQ was 200 on about Wednesday or Thursday. On the next Sunday, I saw a program on CBS's Sunday Morning about a 12-and-a-half-year-old named Masood who had an IQ of 200. Masood had finished college and had planned to enter medical school. His parents were respectively of Iranian and Mexican backgrounds. In the dream, Noah was about 3 to 4 years old. He had numerous freckles. His navel was a little big. He had big, beautiful eyes. Earlier in the dream, Tanya was about 7 to 9 years old and said, "I want my mummy, I want my mummy." Then Noah had appeared. There was also a reference to Jimmy Jr. in the first part of the dream. Dream number 6. In this dream, Noah was with Renako and I as we washed a van. He insisted that Noah kiss him now. Immediately, he started crying in his impatience. Number 7. The next dream indicated that Tanya's current role in his life ended and was replaced by input from me. Number 8. The next dream was about Noah when he was about 6 to 7 months old. He had on two-toned or two colors shoes. Robert, his cousin, was in the background. He was walking rings around Robert. Robert was not walking. Those are not real names. Number 9. Had dream about Noah on the morning of October 9, 1984. He was really sick with a cold. His nose was visibly stopped up severely. Maybe eyes seemed affected. I held him and got down on my knees and prayed for God to help him. Note: in real life, Noah did get sick with a cold on Sunday night, Monday morning, about 2:30 a.m., according to Judy, his grandmother. He has had a problem with a cold since then, though not so severe sometimes. Dream number 10, on October 24th, 1994. I had a dream in the morning about Noah. He seemed okay. No complaints. Seemed healthy, satisfied. Seemed that I kissed him on the cheek, hugged his face. Dream number 11. There was a previous dream that involved Noah, maybe. Saw a youngster using crayons on the wall. Is not clear that was Noah. Number 12. November 1st, 1994. Had a dream about Noah today. We were playing. Seems that he had something on his head, maybe a headband or some kind of hat or cap. I was later playfully trying to get his attention or get him to do something. He kind of ignored me, like he won't look at you sometimes. Noah did seem to be happy in this latest dream. Number 13, dream number 13. December 10th, 1994. Dream about Noah wanting or asking for baby oil on his face, ? January 10th, 1995. Dream about Noah being with Gloria and I. We were in bed together. I believe Noah was singing. January 11th, 1995. Had a dream about Noah. He was walking. June 7th, 1995. Dreamed of Noah and his coals. I was telling someone that he never had these before about September 21st, 1994. Noah came over and kissed me. I hugged and picked him up. There's something about a door being open where a draft was possibly a source of or creating the coals. Number 17, June 25th, 1995. Had a dream about Noah where he was very dark complexioned. He was smiling. The next slide is of Egyptian art. Very beautiful. Very interesting. Chapter 10, Introduction to Dreams and Visions. The following are visions and dreams of the author, yours truly. But before we get into that, here are 3 important concepts. Number 1, the second coming of Christ has already been described or set forth by the prophets. And it is a great, massive learning that will take place as the old systems fall and new ones need to be ushered in for humanity to even survive on the earth plane. At such time, those who have prepared themselves for the leadership of the new age will receive visions, visitations, and channelings from that God link who has become known as the Christ. And as these simultaneously occur throughout the network of those who have taken upon themselves this leadership of the new age, there will be this Christ consciousness of such a vibrational level that it may be deemed the second coming or the unity, and we expect to see very interesting events over the next number of years. Here I have 3.5 years, but at this time we have basically it's set in stone basically with that calendar that we talk about where the second coming began. That is, according to this calendar, it began in 1998. But not only the calendar is used to identify the beginning. There are some other things, lots of things that occurred in 1998 that showed this to be true, that the second coming started in 1998. The definition of Satan, number 2, or the devil, is the quality, misuse, or wrongful use of energies. It is selfishness, greed, envy, jealousy, hatred, lying, oppression, etc. And we have defined it many times. See, this world is mine, and the resurrection of Noah for a fuller definition. And those who have those attributes we call devils. Number 3, hooking up with God means using the Christ link. The best way to use it is for spiritual goals. An environment that is too structured may inhibit its effectiveness. There should be an intellectual and experiential effort to relinquish control to God. Say, God's will be done in all aspects of my life. Then you must apply those principles. If you don't apply lessons learned, their value is diminished. The urgings, creativity, imagination, and reasoning will flow in a process of naturalness. Watch superior instinctive athletes or musicians. Consider the martial arts. The effect is almost like driving with cruise control. You basically just steer a little and go along for the ride. Again, consider how the multitudes were fed with just a few fishes, according to the Bible. You must have love, faith, and trust in our Father, and you must have courage. Beware pseudo-Christians and pseudo-Muslims. Many are ignorant hypocrites, phonies, and devils. They say one thing but do another. Beware the Sadducees, the materialists. Know that the body can be good and divine when in unity with God. Sex, when in love, is divine, and moderation is usually best for you. Do not go on a guilt trip like the silly pseudo-Christians and call God's creation negative things. And know that Islam can be used with Christianity to give a balanced presentation on many matters. We are indeed back because God is today reclaiming the earth from the devils. They were allowed a certain period of rule. Their system has been weighed in the balance and found wanting. Their time is up. Chapter 11, The Dreams and Visions. July 31st, 1971. I saw Aunt Hattie, Aunt Bessie, Uncle Son, and another man accompanying, it seems, Aunt Hattie in a boat at a dock. In retrospect, perhaps they were posing for a picture. The men had gray hair. The picture was later put on the front page of the Defender newspaper. Aunt Hattie had come into some monetary resources which resulted in many people, Caucasians, African Americans, and others, coming to her and forming an apparently protest or demonstration type group. And I was thinking that this group was a more or less ideal, ready-made group that as a start would launch what actions I was to pursue in the way of activist type programs. These people, it seemed, had found their way to her door and were gathered outside partly as a result or consequence of Aunt Hattie's popularity or resources. The boat, to backtrack, was of course sitting in the water, but there was nothing extraordinary about the water. The gray hair made a deep imprint on me. Vision. Number 2. Sometime near but prior to May 11, 1981, I saw myself having a good flow of green healing power coming from my fingers. Dream. Number 3. On February 12, 1985, I was with Gloria. I had an approximately 5-month-old son. He was very handsome. Visions. Number 4. On about April 5th, 1972, I had a vision where I was deflecting 2 rays of current deployed by a bearded, groveling Caucasian antagonist. Then there was the presentation of a triangle. Then there was the presentation of 2 additional triangles. April 13, 1972, I saw several images after an experience that began with a swishing bulk of whitish energy, the most outstanding of which was an upside-down skull, displayed a long while and most vividly. April 16, 1972, I saw 3 or 4 presentations of a skull, right side up. First, 2 together, then 1 with flesh on it, which then disintegrated down to a skull. October 2nd, 1973, I saw a figure's head, which seemed to have a wreath with a flower displayed prominently. The presentation was like a drawing. It seemed like a man's head. Dreams. Number 8. October 27th, 1972. The only remembrance is of water in a great quantity. I was concerned lest the water, which came in the form of rain, would flood my basement. To me, water denotes spirituality. I suspect that I have a fear that the spirituality that I am showered with will cause me some disadvantage. I must erase that fear if it exists, and I will have to summon perpetual courage to dig deep into the psyche, into the subconscious, so that it may be reconstructed. November 8, 1972, I traveled this railroad train, a dream I've had a number of times before. The tracks run from what, from a Chicago viewpoint, would be southeast to northwest. I have caught the train many times underground at the loop going in the northwest direction. One has to go under, over, and along the tracks to board the train. I also travel several underground or ground level roads to get to the boarding place. At one point I came to the entrance of one which said downtown. I realized I was going in the wrong direction when I saw this. Most of the time, the route to the boarding area was only peopled by me or sparsely peopled. I get it. November 10th, 1972. Had a dream over at Washington Store or another building at that approximate location. Dream was about Gloria's brother who lived on Christiana. He had gone to Spain to escape being jailed, and in the dream he came to the door of the building across the street. He seemed to have had his hair blown that is made to seem more like the Spanish. His complexion was light brown, and I thought that this would enable him to blend well with the dark-complexioned Spanish people. Visions. Number 11, August 1972. Just before the customary season that I get hay fever, I had the following vision. Out back of the house that Aunt Bessie lived in Drew, Mississippi, was a raised wooden platform. I sat on it and was astonished to be able to see the inner portion of my body, basically the upper chest area, perhaps, lungs, spinal area, liver, pancreas, stomach, and heart. The organs were pulsating, active. In the vision, I was happy to discover that I was able to see the inner working, the metabolic processes of myself. I, in the vision dream, then headed back toward the house where there was a large 4-foot diameter pot in the front yard. I think it had water in it. Number 12, November 13th, 1972. I had the first experience with a great amount of energy involved since before the hay fever season. There was a stream of energy which lasted for, it seemed, 3 minutes. Then, at or near the end, I saw a partial or full figure of a man with a mustache. His skin was colorless or white, almost like a drawing. Then, at the end of the energy, there was a large figure of a man, head only, to the left peripheral. His hair was black or brown, and his skin was Caucasian. He was alive, but I recall no particular expression that he bore. The first man seemed alive too. The beam of energy was very pleasant, and I was still hopefully waiting for more when I realized that it had expended all the force that I was to receive at that intensity level. The beam of energy is still directed to the head area. It still seems to come from without. At the end of the force, there is usually a presentation of an object seen as one would watch an object on the TV screen. There was an area 1 by 1.5 inches on the last figure's face above the right side that became exposed to what is under the skin, like the encyclopedic method of see-through exposures of the human body after the initial few seconds of presentation. Number 13, June 14, 1982, vision where I saw portions of Central, Southern, and West Central Africa, and also the West, North Central USA. Names, words were not very intelligible or discernible. Number 14, January 13th, 1981, I had a vision dream about being Japanese during a time when there was a war against the Catholics, or about 1637. I was a soldier, had acne. I was about 25 years of age, had on a soldier's uniform. Number 15, about September 6, 1993, I was traveling over an area similar to the Grand Canyon. I felt the kind of love that emanates from God during the experience. It is superior to anything or anyone that we know of. It makes everything and everyone else seem subordinate to that power or feeling. Purity, divinity, and righteousness. Wow. Number 16, April 27, 1979. I went deep into the subconscious, en route seeing one or two lighted objects. Experience similar to looking into the heavens on a dark night. The objects seemed not so distant as planets or stars. Then I decided that I would find out what a certain person was doing, so I spun around. The effect appeared so, counterclockwise. Ended up in a place with mostly women. I didn't find the person I was looking for. My energy level decreased and the vision wound down. About February 1983, I had two recent visions about the Eye of Providence. First, it was there and observed by me. Second, I seemed to have it merged into me. I seem to have the Eye of Providence merged into me. Interesting. Number 18. On the morning of May 4th, 1993, at about 4:50 a.m., it seemed that there were two beings or men. They were somewhat disguised as ordinary, interacting with individuals or groups, like in a schoolroom setting. One then became a preacher, a minister. He was at the rostrum. He was saying that to be a dreamer is a noble, worthwhile state or endeavor. He looked while giving the lecture sermon somewhat like a lion, with long streams of hair, almost white, surrounding his head. To emphasize his point, he then leaned his radiant head forward and levitated about 5 to 6 feet off the floor. I then awoke. Number 19, on the morning of October 4th, 1993, I had a vision about a cube of white energy that came to our home and intersected, merged into the living room, where Tanya and I were. I told her that we were very special people, and in the vision I was aware of the time that she and I, had seen the unidentified object or the unusual lights in the fields southwest of our house on about April 1984. Number 20, on September 27, 1994, at about 4:30 p.m., I was called to the ministry in a fashion similar to Samuel's calling. I was called by name 3 times with a slight variation each time, while in an almost sleep or restful state. I later videotaped at our Access TV station selections from Resurrection and other productions. There was an actual power failure as I was recording, when witnesses, that is Jehovah's Witnesses, tried to connect to Comrade Edison, which is considered to be light. I later used my car or headlights at our town center to light the way for Dawn, a girl named Dawn, and others who provide food and sustenance to people. This was a grocery store. Note, headlights here are seen as the light of the head or the enlightened mind. Enlightened mind. Dreams. Number 21, April 5th, 1981. Dream involving a test which may show a different cell structure in myself, perhaps an alignment or conjunction of the outer electrons. That's interesting. Number 22, about July 20th, 1982, I had an interesting dream about 2 beautiful women. One had very long hair, both were beautiful, brown, one more smooth. The dream concerned males, coming from male sperm, women from hair, rib, that is rib or protein. That's interesting. Number 23, about January 30th, 1993, had a dream about Shaheen, a co-worker. She was very beautiful, but did not look as she looks in this lifetime. She was telling another woman, that the thought or act of kissing or necking made her feel kind of queasy or yucky, embarrassed, ill at ease, maybe because the feelings seemed to control her or exist independently of her wishes. She was smiling, laughing about it. Shaheen had a very beautiful but hooked Indian Semitic ? Nose. Number 24. February 10th, 1993. Had a dream about my son last night. He was a baby but could hum or make sounds that created a melody. Note, at this time I did not have a son in the flesh. Number 25. March 28, 1993. Another dream about a son. Seems that Gloria was a mother. It was kind of a dream within a dream. In the dream, I knew that I had dreamed about that child or that incident. She had him first, handed him off to me. Gloria had the son first, then handed him off to me. Number 26, about April 12th, 1993. I put a gun on an individual. I tried to fire it, but it did not fire. Then I kicked the individual down the stairs into an object in a vicious, brutal assault. Note, this is not like me in this life, ? There was another dream showing this kind of relentless attack, which details I do not recall now. The moral of this is we all need to ask for forgiveness and mercy and also give it. Number 27. May 21st, 1993. I dreamed I was in the Air Force with rank Airman First Class. Number 28. On about September 26, 1992, I had a dream where I was playing guitar. Then I began to play with instinct, perhaps, and the playing became superior and effortless. Note, I have never played guitar in this lifetime. However, let me mention that currently I did buy my grandchildren guitars, all three of them, recently. And back to the project here at hand. The above are just some of the dreams or visions of the author. A lot of them that were omitted are about sons, other family members, or relatives. Other omitted ones have romantic or sexual content, and many just seem of very limited, if of any value. Some might just be inappropriate, especially at this time, but dreams can be useful, and for normal human beings, dreams or visions are normal. And if one does not remember his dreams, we should be asking, why? And the last slide here is, wow, this was a whole minute almost. It's another Egyptian painting or drawing. And it looks a little bit different than most of the others. And this is the end. Please listen to and watch my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. And have a good day.